Good afternoon. Today is the 2nd of April, although you'll probably be seeing this after the bank holiday weekend. And it's time to talk about one of the favourite topics on this channel. It's not necessarily my favourite topic, but I find I keep having to talk about it. It's clean air and ultra low emission zones. They're going to be coming in a lot faster than you think. So what exactly is a clean air or ultra low emission zone? Well, it's generally the part of a city or town, in this country anyway, that is designated limits on the type of vehicles that can enter into it. So, for example, the London ultra low emission zone, which came into effect 2 years ago now, is actually an area of London. It's the same as the congestion charge zone at the moment, but it's going to get larger, as we'll look into a little bit later. That particular place, there are charges for cars that do not comply with certain emissions targets, or regulations, I should say. So in the ultra low emission zone in London, for example, if you have a petrol car, I'm sitting in a petrol car today, this is a Sally on Tivoli, that is what's called Euro 4 or later. Euro 4 emissions regulations came in January 2006. Then you don't have to pay any charges. Likewise, if you had a diesel car, we're going to call diesel forbidden fuel because I'm not allowed to talk about it on this channel. If you have a forbidden fuel car that is after September 2015, that's a Euro 6 compliant car, then again, there's no charge for driving in the London ultra low emission zone. There is a charge, obviously, for congestion charge because they're the same zone, but you don't get double charged for that. Now, the confusing thing comes that actually a lot of Euro 4 petrol cars came out before 2006. For example, I have a Rover 45 V6, that's a 2003, and that is a Euro 4 car. So that is London ultra low emission zone compliant, obviously not with the congestion charge. Now, with the forbidden fuel cars, that's not such a sort of broad range. Some Euro 4 cars were made in 2001, as early as 2001. It tends to be that there really weren't many Euro 6 forbidden fuel cars before 2014. So the likelihood is, if you have something that's 2014 or earlier, it's not Euro 6 compliant, and then you'll have to pay to enter London ultra emission zone. The ultra low emission zone in London is going to expand in October 2021. It's going to, rather than just being the same as the congestion charge zone, it's going to be actually as large as the North and South Circular. That is actually in just over 6 months' time. So you haven't really got very long to not pay £12.50 a day. Obviously, if you enter the congestion charge zone, that's entirely separate. That's again about £12.50 a day or something like that. And both these charges now apply 24/7, which they didn't used to. Okay, so we'll just get that out of the way. What's the other ultra low emission zones that are coming? Well, we've got a whole load of them here. Bath's already got one. Some of them are called clean air zones as opposed to ultra low emission zones, but they are pretty much the same thing. Bath's one, which came in on 15th of March this year, only applies to taxis. It doesn't apply to normal private cars at the moment. I stress at the moment because it could get worse. So Birmingham, that's going to be on 1st of June. It's not long now. Leicester is coming in this summer. Oxford, we think it's August. Bradford, we think it's October. London is 25th of October, the expansion of it. Obviously, it's been around since April 2019. Bristol is coming in the 29th of October. That was being delayed from 2020. I actually have a couple of videos about the Bristol clean air zone on the channel already, and I'm hoping to actually travel to Bristol again and meet up with one of my friends who actually sits on the local council and talk about it. He doesn't actually drive, so he'll probably be filming me if you drive around the zone in there. Portsmouth, November 2021. We're actually quite near Portsmouth here. We're in Eastleigh, so it's not too far away from here. Manchester, spring 2022. Glasgow between February and May 2022, Edinburgh between February and May 2022, Dundee between February and May 2022, and Aberdeen between February and May 2022. People who are planning clean air zones are Sheffield and Newcastle, so these aren't really confirmed. One thing I do have to stress is that every single clean air ultra emission zone can have its own limits. It can be similar to London, or it can be pretty different. But the Bristol one is actually different in that it's not even a charge, it's a ban of forbidden fuel cars. One of the reasons why we don't talk about diesel on the channel is because the government seems to be in this sort of stage where it's trying to get rid of basically all of them as much as it can. And, you know, I have owned diesel cars. I've owned two. I do occasionally drive them on the channel, but I'm not supposed to talk about that. But one of the main jokes we've had since September 2018, when we started this channel, is that we can't talk about diesels. I used to live on the outskirts of London. I lived in Epsom for over 10 years, and that's where I started my career sourcing cars for private clients, which is what I do. That's my job. YouTube is just a sideline, although sometimes it doesn't seem like that. And if you are in London, dealerships often will not allow you to trade in a diesel car. They just won't. I remember looking for a client for a car ended last month. I did a job up there in southwest London, and one of the cars we looked at, which was a Hyundai, they specifically said in the Auto Trader advert, no diesel part exchanges. The place where actually the dealership was, it was in Balham. That's very, very, very close to the South Circular, which will be the boundary of the expanded ultra low emission zone. And if you have a diesel vehicle which is not Euro 6 compliant, so probably before 2015, you have to pay every day you drive it if your car moves. If you live inside this North and South Circular, of course, from October, you don't have to pay if it just sits there. But if it moves, you have to pay for it. And I don't remember if there are any discounts to residents on this. I've been told, actually, that there might not be. I've got a cousin who lives in Chiswick, which is just inside this area. And I thought initially his 2013 van, which of course has a forbidden fuel engine in it, was going to be exempt until 2023, or at least discounted. But I'm not actually sure. We'll have to see about that. But this is a sort of kind of overview of a lot of things. One thing I will say before we get into the sort of more detail about some of these zones and what might be affected by them. The general rules I have said are about the petrol and forbidden fuel cars. They apply to most things, and so to assume that they apply unless I actually say is that if you have a car that's over 40 years old, so in this case before 1981, then it doesn't actually apply. Particularly in London, I know that's the case. So, for example, I recently drove a Jaguar E-Type. It was a 1966 Jaguar E-Type. That was on the channel in January 2020. I drove that. That would be absolutely fine to go into the London Ultra Emission Zone. Isn't that crazy? But it's true. Just before all the classic car owners start accusing me of forgetting something, but that's very important. Okay, so we're going to go through these in order of the information I've got here. Bath came in on 15th of March this year. That was the pretty much the second one to go in after the London one. That's a clean air zone, I think they call it. So at the moment, the cost per day for a taxi that isn't compliant is £9 in Bath. It's quite a weird boundary, the Bath one. We did do a video about this in the last year. But if you just have a normal private car, it's absolutely fine. We won't talk about HGV, things like that. So, Birmingham, this is one which will affect a lot of people. The boundary is rather similar to in London. It's actually just one road. It is the A4540 Middleway Ring Road is the boundary of the zone. And so if you live within it, you can drive on the road itself, no problem. If you live within it or drive within it, that means you've got to pay if your car is not Euro 4 petrol or Euro 6 forbidden fuel. And it's 24 hours a day as well. For what I can see here, it says that it's going to be £8 a day if your car is not compliant. Vehicles over 40 years old and motorbikes and school buses are all exempt. The residents can apply for an exemption, which will last for 2 years, and people on low incomes can, also get a 1 year exemption. So Leicester, this isn't actually something that's going to apply to normal passenger cars at the moment, so we'll skip that. They are going to possibly bring this in. They haven't completely decided yet, and that is just like the Bath one. It doesn't apply to normal private cars, just taxis, which is £8 a day for ones that are compliant. Right. Gosh, Oxford. You've got to remember Oxford was the first city in this country to introduce park and ride. That was back in 1970, so 51 years ago. So Oxford, it's a bit difficult driving Oxford anyway. I mean, we might possibly go to Oxford at some point and have a look at it, but yeah, they don't like passenger cars in Oxford. So what I can see here, the clean air zone, which has been discussed for 6 years now, it's supposed to be a few streets in the middle of Oxford, St Michael Street, New Hall Inn Street, to start off with, and then it will get worse. It will not be 24/7. It will be 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Zero emission vehicles are free of charge. That's things like battery electric cars, and this is where it gets interesting. Non-compliant cars aren't just charged a flat fee like in London, for example, or Birmingham. They are charged on a rising scale, starting from cars that emit less than 75 kilos of CO2, which is probably plug-in hybrids mainly, £2, that will rise to £4 in August 2025. Cars that have Euro 4 compliant or Euro 4 petrol compliant or Euro 6 forbidden fuel engines will be charged £4, rising to £8 in 2025. If your car is not compliant with anything, it's just Euro 3 or petrol or Euro 5 forbidden fuel, then it will be £10, rising to £20 in 2025. Oh dear. Yeah, you can get a discount if you live within that zone. Bradford, that again is a zone that only applies to taxis. It's £12.50 a day. That's coming in October, probably. There's no charge for normal private cars. London, well, it's £12.50 a day for normal passenger cars. It's currently in use in the congestion charge zone, which you have to pay for, that anyway. Pretty much all cars now have to pay for congestion charge. But with the expanded one, you have to pay if you drive into the Northern South Circular, not just for the little zone in the middle. It's a huge zone now, huge. And hybrids are no longer exempt from this. So if you've got an older hybrid car, that's mainly sort of things like Honda Insights and Priuses from before 2006. Those aren't compliant anymore. £12.50 a day, possibly a double charge. Bristol, clean air zone. Right. It's a very small zone. This initially was going to be a total and utter ban for forbidden fuel cars. However, it's apparently a small area spanning Bristol Centre to Temple Quay and the immediate surroundings. We're going to have a look at this at some point. We'll go and see my friend Ian and we'll have a look at this. So the charge is £9 a day if you are not compliant. It's actually different from what it used to be. They were going to ban all forbidden fuel vehicles entirely. It was just a complete ban. There wasn't even a charge. This is going to be different. It's just £9 a day if you're not compliant. So there we go. People who live within the zone won't have to pay a charge for at least a year, or low-income drivers who have to enter the area for work. People going to visit hospital will dodge for charge, and people who are disabled too. Right, let's go on to Portsmouth. Now this is just around the corner from here, so it's these zones are so many of them that they actually do affect a lot of people. They affect more people than we first imagined that they would. Portsmouth thing hasn't completely been approved yet. It's supposed to come in November 2021. It's probably going to go down from where the N275 meets the city, which is where all the ferries and things are, going down to Kingston Road, Fratton Road, to Gunworth Quays, a shopping centre, and back up to M275, encompassing Portsmouth University, main shopping district, and the harbour. Now, this says it might be £10 for private cars. I haven't really sort of worked this out yet, but yeah, it's not great if you're going down to shopping in Gunworth Quays and you take a classic from the 80s up there, really. Manchester's clean air zone, which is going to be absolutely huge, that's scheduled for 2022, but it won't affect normal passenger cars at the moment, just taxis. But I don't know how long that's going to last. It's quite a large zone as well, apparently. So, and then we've got the last ones on here, which are going to come in between February and May 2022. Glasgow, Edinburgh, Dundee and Aberdeen. We don't know what it's going to be exactly. The government in Scotland hasn't really explained this too much. It's probably going to be the same old stuff. Pre-Euro 6 petrols, pre-Euro 4 petrols, Euro 6 forbidden fuel cars. Aberdeen have said there might be a grace period for this, but yeah, we'll have to see about that later. Newcastle, it's probably going to come in, but they're not really saying anything. They were going to literally put one of these in this January, but it didn't happen. So, yeah, again, they aren't saying that they're going to charge normal private cars, just taxis and vans and things. But that might change. Sheffield, again, this might come in. It's not totally certain. I do go to visit my two uncles. They live up in Sheffield. And so this might well apply to me if I'm around. Now, what are they saying about this? They're saying that the area might cover Sheffield's inner ring road and city centre, including Park Square. And again, it's not supposed to affect normal private cars. Leeds, Liverpool and Nottingham, and also Cambridge, it says here, those were scheduled to receive clean air zones. The terms clean air zones, ultra emission zones, and just in Scotland, just low emission zones are all banded around, and they all kind of mean the same thing, but they're a bit different. So just watch that terminology. So those for cities, Leeds, Liverpool, Nottingham, Cambridge, they were going to introduce these, but it looks like they actually aren't going to for the moment. So there is a stay of execution, but oh my gosh, you sort of think, oh, I don't live in London, it's not going to affect me. Oh, I don't live anywhere near, a big city, it's not going to affect me. Well, the thing is that someone like Cambridge isn't very big, and neither is Bath, and Bath's already got one of these zones, which might come to affect private cars quite soon. Cambridge is probably going to get one. I wouldn't be surprised even if Winchester, which is where I'm actually from, which is quite close to here, if that gets one, and also Southampton. So, yeah, I drive in Southampton sometimes. I drove in London the other day, just very close to where the South Circular is. So, I mean, this is going to affect quite a lot of us. And it's coming in a bit sooner than you'd think it is too. I mean, obviously, I source cars to people all the time, and a lot of my work is in London, and I really don't source forbidden fuel cars in London for clients anymore. I had a discussion about this. One of my friends who lives quite near the A4, actually, he's well within the new boundary for the congestion charge. He's well within inside it, and he said, "Why can't I buy a diesel?" I said, "Because it won't make any sense for you. It won't make any sense anymore. Diesel cars have their uses, but it's just going to be a bit of a problem now." Anyway, thank you ever so much indeed once again for watching. Sorry this has gone on a bit long. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more updates about this and other things. Click the notification bell. Social media links are down below, and of course, if you wish me to source a car for you, because that's what I do, it's my job, then a link to my website is also in the description below. Thank you very much indeed once again for watching.